Hey guys, I just want to make a quick video here on electricity and its terms and definitions. I certainly know when I first started coffee trucking, it was very confusing to me. And so I want to kind of break this down. So let's start off with voltage. Voltage by definition is the potential difference. Now, what that means is it's really a pressure definition. So I think of IV drip tubing, I was a paramedic before this. And so I tend to relate it to IV drips. So if I start an IV and I hang it level with the person's arm, how much fluid is going to move through? Not much. If I were to move it up 6 inches, how much fluid is going to move? It's going to start moving, but it's very little. And so that's kind of like a low pressure system, low voltage system. This is going to be like your 5-volt systems to charge your phone, your 12-volt systems on your car battery, right? Those are low voltage systems. They're not under a lot of pressure. Now, what if I were to hang it above a person's head? Okay, now we got some fluid moving. And so that's kind of like household electric, 120 voltage. When they say 110 or 115 or 120, those three are all the same things because voltage is actually a range. It's somewhere between 110 and 120. And then if I were to move it above the person's head and then squeeze the bag, then that would be like a lot of pressure. And so that's a higher voltage system, like a 240 volt system, right? So voltage is very much a pressure definition. Amps are current. So amps are the amount of, I think of the amount of fluid running through the IV tubing, and there's different factors on that. Obviously you have to have a larger tubing and you have to have, good voltage, but it's basically the flow, your current flow rate. And so if I have it wide open, I just leave that wide open, then I'm going to move more fluid than if I were to set like a drip rate. So amps are very much a current rate or a flow rate. And then wattage is the amount of IV fluid that the patient has received. So it's the amount of energy that the appliance is consuming. And the way you obtain that number is you have to look at the current running through the IV line plus the pressure on the bag. So if you have it wide open, you open up your IV tubing wide open and then you move your bag down here, well, okay, you got, a good flow, but you don't have a lot of pressure. So you're not going to move a lot of energy versus if you were to have it wide open and you start squeezing on the bag, well, then you have a lot of pressure moving through. You have a wide open IV tubing set, and then, you're going to move a lot more fluid through. So that patient's going to receive a lot more IV fluid, so it'll be a higher wattage. So wattage is the amount of energy. To me, the way I think of it is the amount of energy received or consumed by the appliance. You obtain that from timesing your amps by your voltage, and that's how you find out how much fluid you've given to your patient. And then watt hours is the amount of fluid you've given to your patient within an hour. And so you just take that, that you take whatever the appliance is using, say your coffee pot or something, you're using it for 2 hours during the day and it runs maybe 1,500 watts. Well, then that's 3,000 watt hours. So it's the amount of wattage times the time, the hours. And sometimes that's not always a full number. You when you're calculating wattage hours for your grinder, you do it by 10-second increments because and that, I don't want to confuse anybody. You do that. Sorry, I shouldn't even brought that up. That's for when you're calculating for battery power. Most people aren't going to do that. Most people are calculating for generator. So I probably shouldn't even bring watt hours in, but that's what a watt hour is. You use watt hours whenever you're calculating for battery or solar. Everybody else is just going to use how much the appliance is using, the wattage. So I wanted to give some basic definitions out there because I know it's a little confusing. Your voltage is the pressure in the system, high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, moderate, low pressure. Your amps is your flow rate, the amount of fluid moving through the IV tubing, or the amount of energy moving through your line. And then your wattage is the amount of fluid that your patient has received or the amount of energy that your appliance has consumed. You obtain that by taking your amperage and timesing it by your volts to figure out what the wattage is. I hope this helps. Hopefully I didn't make it more confusing. Thanks so much for tuning in.